Welcome to Los Libertinos podcast, episode number 3, Chingazos and Fire. My guest today is Paco Elijah. He is a liberty activist that I've been following him online through the Facebook for many years. We were talking before this started, and I told him I don't remember how or when, but I knew for sure since the Ron Paul's 2012 run, for sure, because that's when I started getting a little bit more active on social media. But who knows? I mean, he might have even been on the old school Ron Paul forums and all that stuff. I'm sure, a lot of the people that get into this in the liberty movement for sure got a lot of their start, via the Ron Paul stuff. But he's also the CEO of Occupy the Media, which is like a media outlet, social media outlet that tries to, their mission is to expose the media lies and combat the narratives that the conventional mainstream media puts out. So Paco, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so for anybody that doesn't know some of your activism, can you kind of do a little rundown of how you got into the liberty movement, how it's a part of your life, obviously, because you're very active in doing that, and maybe touch a little bit of your background on how liberty and libertarianism kind of molded who you are today, but via some of your background, if you don't mind, just to let the guests know, the audience know what's up.
Yeah, definitely. So and I'm coming in good, clear for you, right?
We're all good.
Perfect. Well, I guess it was kind of hate to say it, but it was through Alex Jones, really. I used to listen to Alex Jones, and when I first came across him, somewhere, I don't know if it was an interview or if I just happened to come across an article or a video clip, but he had Ron Paul on, either on his website, InfoWars, Prison Planet, or he was on an interview. I can't remember, but I came across Ron Paul through Alex Jones. And Ron Paul he basically kind of like opened my eyes. Like, before Ron Paul, I was kind of figuring out that government was corrupt and government, don't care about us, don't care about our liberties, our lives, or anything like that. But Ron Paul kind of gave us an answer, not just what the problem is, but what's the solution. And he was teaching about liberty, these libertarian ideas and principles, and I just fell in love with it. I mean, I turned into a radical almost instantly. I mean, I remember one video I posted up where I was outside bullhorning by myself. I just had one camera dude, and I was bullhorning during traffic hour. And I was just bullhorning about Ron Paul. And I mean, I was a brand new libertarian. It wasn't like I knew that much, but I just knew that what he was talking about, he was on to something. Freedom, liberty. And so, yeah, I just kind of turned crazy a little bit. And so anyways, helped Ron Paul in 2008, helped Ron Paul in 2012. I was really more part of the grassroots, not really part of the campaign, but part of the grassroots, and I was very active. So in 2008, I was in Virginia at the time. And so we linked up with a lot of meetup groups. I don't know if you remember back then, but there was a website still out now called Meetup. And Ron Paul was pretty much known. The Ron Paul supporters were known for taking over that whole thing, like pretty much across the country. So I started meeting up with people. We started like, going to like downtown and like marching and waving signs and signing people up to vote. And I mean, we did so many things. I remember Obama came to town, and I was bullhorning Obama supporters in 2008 in Virginia Beach. It was real crazy. Ron Paul just really had all of us like on a high, because we finally had someone that was like, somebody that was saying what we was thinking and putting it together for us, making it make sense. You know what I mean? Instead of us just saying, oh, the government's evil and they're the problem with this, like Ron Paul was like, no, but it's about liberty and property rights and, gold and silver and all these things that no one ever really told me about. And it really just excited me. And so I went to DC, I think once or twice, and marched out there. There was like this big march. I want to say it was like over 5,000, 10,000 people there. It was a huge march that they had in DC. I saw Ron Paul one time in DC. And then so 2008, we obviously we didn't get anywhere. McCain got the nomination. And so after that, 2008 was a big eye opener, but I moved to California. I always had a dream to move to California, live in California. So came to California, Did the same thing I was doing in Virginia when it was 2012 came around. I think that was like right around the time that I moved too. So when I got to California, it was right back on again. And I met up same way I met up with the Virginia people. I met up with all the California people, and it was a lot more over here in California. So we was going to Santa Monica, making phone calls for Ron Paul, marching. I remember one of the best days, even to this day, one of the best days of my life was at UCLA when Ron Paul came to speak. It was like the atmosphere, the feeling in the air. It was just, I don't know how to describe it. It was just something special. And everybody was just thinking about liberty and freedom. And I don't know, everybody just coming together. It was great, man.
Yeah, no, I hear. Yeah, I hear you. I remember the first time I saw Ron Paul, and again, like, and I don't mind, it's funny that, people always say, like, if they got to Ron Paul through Alex Jones, they always do like the disclaimer, like, oh, but no, yeah, me too. It was through Alex Jones. I must have, I don't know how, but Alex Jones stuff, I was also watching it, and then I don't know, through him or somehow, I don't know if you remember that documentary, Freedom to Fascism.
Yeah,
it was with that guy. So then, that Aaron Russo guy, he interviews this dude, this old man, and I was like, who's this vato? I was like, this guy's spitting fire over here. Like, I was like, I hope he runs for president or something. I'd vote for. And then, like, a couple months later or something, it was like, oh, he's running, and then that was it for me too. But yeah. So you've been at this for a while now, because if you think about it, man, from 8 to now, that's already whatever it is, 11, 12 years. And I guess one of my questions would be kind of like, since you said that you were a brand new libertarian to it, how was it? Simply just having somebody speak to the ideas that had integrity, that could actually back up with the voting record? Was it really about the ideas and the man together, Ron Paul, being able for you to look up to in that way? Or was it the ideas more, or a combination of both?
Yeah.
Or, because, really there isn't right now somebody that is inspiring enough to get a new generation of libertarians like ourselves that got through Ron Paul. So, what was it about exactly about Ron Paul that got you into it,
Okay, well, going back, when I was in Virginia, I used to sell DVDs, and I used to burn Blockbuster movies. So I used to go to Blockbuster and I used to burn movies, and I would just sell them, and I was, basically hustling. And one day I was at work, and I was just thinking, I don't know if I was thinking out loud or talking to someone. I was like, you know what, man, I should try to burn some type of music videos. MTV, BET, maybe I could sell some of these music videos. And somebody said something to me, and it was like, why would you do that? You could just go on YouTube. And I was like, YouTube? I was like, what is YouTube? And I had never heard of no YouTube. This is like way back, I don't know, 06, 07 or something like that. And so I went home and I pulled up this website called YouTube. And I was like, oh man, they got all the music videos on here. There's no way I'm going to be able to sell any of this. I was like, who's going to come to me when they could just get this? So, that was out the question, but I don't know what it was. I don't know where this came from, but something told me to type in 9/11. I don't know why. Again, there was no reason to, but I just typed in 9/11 in YouTube because I wanted to see what came up for whatever reason. I can't really remember why, but I typed it in and I came across this documentary called Loose Change. And the Paco that I was before I watched that film died as I was watching that film. For some people, they gotta like wake up by, I don't know, hearing the truth over and over again for years and years. There's some people like me, they just need someone to show them once. And once I got it, I'm on. And that's what happened. I watched this documentary and it really just clicked for me that the government was the problem, that the government, and it was about 9/11 and stuff, but it just clicked with me that, oh, government is the issue. Government's the problem. They don't care about us. They're out to get us. And I mean, I just started watching stuff about Bill Clinton, the Clinton Chronicles, and how he was involved with I think the kid that got killed by the train tracks. And they try to say that he died from marijuana or something like that. So I watched a documentary on that. Man, I just started going down this rabbit hole, and my whole weekend was ruined. Like I was just stuck on YouTube, like, and dude, like as I'm watching this, I literally feel like this, like this, it was almost like I was shedding skin. I was becoming somebody else as I was watching all this. Like my old self was just, and all my friends said it. All my friends was like, yo, what happened to you? You turned crazy. What's wrong with you? You know, they're coming over to smoke and cook out and chill. And I'm talking about like liberty and all this crazy stuff. They're like, what the, you just trying to smoke and holler at some chicks and shit. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you know, I started turning like loco crazy out of the crew. Like, you know, I went from being like every regular dude that just want to do what everybody else want to do to now I'm like, oh shit, I'm pulling up documentaries, I'm watching all this stuff. I couldn't stop. So anyways, I came across Alex Jones naturally, right? Because The Loose Change was written by these two, or made by these two young dudes that was with Alex Jones or worked with Alex Jones. So I came across Alex Jones, and then boom, I came across Ron Paul. But what the thing about Ron Paul is that he didn't just say, okay, government's the problem, government's out to get you, they're preying on you, and they did 9/11 or whatever. He was actually like breaking it down. Like he was breaking down what the problem was, how long the problems existed, how government has been the problem, and what the solution is. So he was actually like giving answers and solutions. He was making it clear for me. And that's what did it for me. That's what, from the moment I found out about him, like I said, I went out and on a bullhorn, and then I'm hanging out with all these Ron Paul strangers I don't know. And we're out, you know, marching and bullhorning Obama supporters in '08, you know? So, I mean, Ron Paul really lit a fire under me.
Yeah, and
really
yeah, for sure. And I mean, we're talking about it, and now I'm starting to remember more. But yeah, man, he was our guy throwing chingazos on the stage, man. Those debate stage, man. Those nights were badass, man. They were just we were just waiting for him to get a question, because we already knew he was going to spit some fire. And one of the most famous ones for sure was the interaction he did with the Rudy Giuliani about the whole theory of blowback and all that. And I remember everybody wanted a piece of Ron Paul after that, because you know, he was basically, basically like the mission of of Occupy the Media, right? You know, exposing the lies and combating the narrative that's being put out there, you know?
It's funny you mentioned that, because that's where Occupy the Media comes from. So Occupy the Media started in 2012. So fast forward from Virginia to California. I'm in California. I'm teaming up with all these Ron Paulers. We're making phone calls for Ron Paul. We're going out, waving signs, doing whatever. But somebody started a radio station called ronpaulradio.com.
And I remember that. I remember something like that.
Yeah, there was a ronpaulradio.com. And I don't know how I got in contact with them or whatever, but somehow I got in contact with the person who was running it, and he gave me a chance, and he loved the way I was talking. He gave me my own little show, whatever time slot I had. And I called the show Occupy the Media. And so my show every day, or I don't know how many days a week, but every day was basically following the Ron Paul movement. I was reporting on the Ron Paul supporters and the Ron Paul votes and the delegates. And basically I was reporting on that. And a couple of times I interviewed some people that were at the conventions and they got cheated. And we talked about that. One of the guys, I think his name was Henry, he got thrown on the ground by the police, and he was an elderly guy. We talked to him about that. So I was just keeping up with it. And so, yeah, we had this website called RonPaulTribune.com, and a bunch of us Ron Paul supporters that were really serious would meet up in this chat. And it was like a video chat. It was like a website, but it had like a video chat, and it had all these different webcams. So you could have like 20, 30 people on at once, and then you could have infinite amount of people in the chat, in the messaging. So, people were turning into celebrities off of this shit. Like people were coming up there. We had Adam Kokesh come in there a couple times. We had the dude that ended up turning to be this big old racist dude that was on the news and shit. His name escapes me right now, but somebody listening knows what I'm talking about. But anyways, we used to be in that chat room talking about the delegates, and we used to have so many discussions about liberty and everything like that. And that's where I came up with if I'm not mistaken, that's where I came up with the idea about Occupy the Media. And I told everybody, like, look, I've realized the issue is the media. The media, before everybody was on the media and talking about it, there was a few of us that picked up on the media early on, before there was all this wave and anti-media anger and anti-media stuff. Before that was going on, it really started with the Ron Paul supporters. And we were the ones that picked up on it, because Ron Paul was so honest and he was being truthful, he was causing the media to show their true colors. And by them showing their true colors, it was revealing themselves to us, those of us that were watching the media. We were like, take it back, like, oh snap, they really cheating him and doing him wrong and dirty. And why is he getting, 10 questions the whole night and barely getting any talk time, and they're talking over him and they're cutting him off. And I mean, it was like so many things they were doing to cheat him. And it was, without them realizing it, Ron Paul was causing them to show their hand. They were exposing who they really were. And that made me realize, like, oh shit, this is enemy number one right here. This is public enemy number one. And that's why I named my website and my radio show Occupy the Media. Later on, the website came, but the website's kind of dead right now because I don't really have the time or money or resources to really keep a website going. So there's nothing really going on the website. But that's where the whole idea of Occupy the Media stemmed from, was from Ron Paul's treatment by the media.
Yeah, and so what is it about the media's, how would I say, their incentive to do people that basically I always thought of it as they weren't cheating, but it's their platform. They could do whatever they want. If they weren't going to show the polls that were favorite, they would edit out different things. So yeah, I mean, to me, I always just thought, yeah, they're playing dirty, but it's obviously because this guy has something to say that is going to mess up their incentive to, because they're all right. They're all married, right? All these people, all these high up people, they marry this, they all their kids go together, the political class, the media class, they intermarry, and there's a lot of incentives to keep them separate from the regular folks, and they just feed us, like the lies and all that stuff. But it's also about money, because you got to make money to those people have to make money too. So, the current incentive to tell the truth really isn't there. And that's why alternative media is always taken off, like even, for example, like Joe Rogan, all these different avenues and platforms have been blowing up. But, the idea of occupying the media also comes from like occupying Occupy Wall Street. And, that was where the term came from too.
Exactly.
And if you kind of notice, they shifted from, the Occupy Wall Street thing was a real thing that, people had maybe different views that came into it, but it automatically started turning towards all this wokeism stuff. It was almost like if the media and Wall Street, because, they all interlocked together, and they started pushing it towards like something away from Wall Street. But I guess my question is kind of like, how can we get people to know that the media isn't always what they say they are, right? So,
I think that in the last 5 years, it has kind of shifted where we don't really need to try so hard to expose the media, because a lot of people already know. I mean, I guess some of the lefties still need to wake up to it. But I think for the most part, I think most people do not trust the media, left or right. Okay. I just think they like the media when the media says something that they want to hear. Right. So the lefties might not trust the media, but if they're going to diss Trump, well, they'll jump on the bandwagon for the day or for the week or whatever. Right. Because they want to diss Trump. But I don't think they necessarily trust the media. I don't think anybody does. I think the issue now is alternative media, to be honest with you. I think alternative media has turned into the problem, where the media has been so exposed now that most people already know what the corporate media is up to. Most people know that they're, bullshit, and not to trust them, not to listen to them. But I have found over the last few years that the alternative media is becoming a problem. The alternative media is starting to become a distraction. If you notice, when the alternative media was first coming out, like, I'd say like not long after YouTube, back around 06, 07, things like that, around that time, the alternative media was touching on real issues like 9/11, what really went on with that, the wars, what's going on with these wars, Guantanamo. Alternative media was really an area that you could go to hear about the stories that are not being talked about, the stories that are kind of being swept under the rug. And that's why alternative media kind of like blew up and it became real popular, because everybody, especially young people like me at the time, we were like yearning for the truth, right? We were like, yearning for what the answers are. What are the answers to all these problems and stuff that's going on? And alternative media was a place you could go to. But when you fast forward to now, alternative media has turned into the media, except just a reaction to it. So now every alternative media outlet, they're either reacting to a story that the media is covering, or they're reacting to their opponents, right? Because you see the right-wing media always talk about the liberals, right? The liberals always talk about racism, but then you guys always talk about the liberals, so then all of us end up talking about racism, right? Because all y'all talking about is the liberals. I mean, I feel like nobody watches liberal media more than the conservatives. Every single thing they talk about and post about, it's about what the liberal media is doing. It's all just a reaction. And then if you take that part away from it, all you have is them talking about the stories they want to put a spotlight on, right? So let's say, I don't know, an illegal immigrant gets killed, an American gets killed by an illegal immigrant. Oh, that's the story for the right there. Let's all put a spotlight on it. Now all of them talking about that. Or when that one, I don't know, I think one of the CNN reporters did something. He put his hands on somebody, or something happened in the old when they were asking questions. I forgot that guy's name, and he made the news, and he was all over the place, going viral. And the Trump supporters were all over it. I can't remember exactly what he did or what he said, but that's what I mean. It's like the left and the right are covering the stories that they want to cover, that caters to their base. Right. So if it has to do with illegal immigrants, we're gonna share that story over and over and talk about that over and over on the right side. If it has to do with, racism, a white guy shoots up a school or something, now the lefties are going to talk about that over and over and over again. So it ends up being these two sides, alternative media, reacting to each other all day, every day, or just focusing on the stories that their base is all about. Right. But in the midst of all that, what gets ignored? The foreign policy, the wars, all the civilians that we're bombing, the families we're destroying, the families at the border that are being separated, the civil asset forfeiture that's going on in the country, all the eminent domain that's going on in the country, everything that the State Department is doing, the Pentagon is doing, the CIA, the FBI, all these things that are operating every day that government is doing is going unseen and unnoticed and under the radar, because we're all talking about the stupid stories, the nonsense, well, he says, she say this. I mean, if you look at the news, sometimes I'm like, how is this news? Who cares what he or she said or thought? And then when you add in all the fluff news, like the celebrity news and the gossip, and next thing you know, everything is just fluff. Everything is just opinion, and nobody's getting down to the truth. Nobody's exposing the deep state. Nobody's exposing the government. Now it's all about exposing the left and exposing the right. And so I think that, yes, we got to expose the media, to get back to your first point. But I think it's left that arena, so to speak, and it's now gone down to the alternative media. The alternative media has become the enemy now. And I think that they are actually doing more damage than the actual media now, because the media has been fully exposed. I mean, look at their
when you say alternative media, what what exactly are you saying? I mean, like
all the right-wing outlets and the left-wing outlets. So, Breitbart, Daily Wire, all the ones that are not CNN, CBS, NBC, Fox, the ones that you turn on TV, those are the mainstream ones. But you got the alternative media ones, right or left, right? Because it don't really matter which organization you're looking at. They all tend to cater to a base, and that's the problem, right? If you go to a right-wing page, you're going to see all the right-wingers in the comments all agreeing with each other. So, they all pat each other on the back. And then you go to the left-wing page, on the left-wing story, all the left-wingers are patting each other on the back. And then when they attack each other, they're all patting each other on the back about attacking the other side. And they all think they're winning. They all think they got each other. And, oh, we got the left, we got the right. Oh, look at them. They're scared of us. They're afraid of us. And it's just like, no, y'all ain't afraid of each other. You guys are just rambling and yelling back and forth, and it's getting nowhere. Yeah. You guys are focusing on stuff that don't matter. You're yelling and arguing about the most idiotic, stupid stories, manufactured controversy is what it is. Trump said this. Like, okay, so what? Trump's bombing people. Why aren't we talking about that? He is dropping bombs on brown people that look like you and me. Why
Yeah,
don't
no,
we
I hear
talk
you.
about that? You know, like why aren't we talking about that? So that's the problem with alternative media is that, and honestly, I'm gonna be real with you. I honestly believe my little theory is that alternative media has been infiltrated. You know, call it whoever you want, CIA, FBI, deep state, whatever. I believe that the Ben Shapiro's of the world and the Candace Owens and these type of people, I believe that they're either being handled, they have handlers, or the people that they work for are being handled. And I believe that they all cater and they all have a certain agenda, and it's not freedom, liberty, exposing government.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Another person that influenced you because you've mentioned it before was Malcolm X, and he spoke a lot about this. And just recently, uh, I know there was a like a documentary. I don't know if it was on Netflix or something that came up
Yeah.
where it showed like who killed him, and you had just recently posted something about that. One of the people that said that they did kill him just admitted it on their deathbed. Can you speak a little bit to how Malcolm X influenced you and how this new news shines a little bit to what you're saying, that people get infiltrated when they're real
Yeah.
threats, they sometimes they get infiltrated.
Yeah, definitely. We got to remember that, all of us, that whenever there's a movement, Tea Party, Occupy Wall Street, whatever, um, a lot of times they start off genuine and then they turn into something else. Black Lives Matter. They start off genuine and then they get infiltrated. They get so that way they can be demonized. And so this is a play. This is a play out of the government's playbook, and we have to pick up on that. We have to recognize that. But I have always grown up knowing about Martin Luther King and hearing about him. In school, they didn't really say much about Malcolm X. It was always Martin Luther King. And, just always knowing that Martin Luther King was about nonviolence and, equality. And I noticed that Ron Paul over the years used to always give shout outs to Martin Luther King. And on his birthday, he would always talk about him or mention him. And so I always remember hearing about Martin and how he was about peace and equality and equal rights and things like that. Well, I vaguely, maybe our here and there might have heard things from Malcolm X or might have saw little quotes here and there, but never really dove into what he was about or really listened to him. Well, one year, my girlfriend and my daughter left to go see her family in Philadelphia, and so I was home by myself. I don't know, for like a week or a few days or something while they were out of town. So you know how us guys are. We don't really get to control the TV much when our girl is is home, right? Because we gotta let them watch what they want to watch most of the time. So I had the TV to myself, so I could put anything I wanted on. So I was like thinking, like, man, what do I want to watch? Like, what? And I just decided to check out Malcolm X. I was like, let me check out. And YouTube got a lot of videos of him. And man, let me tell you, Malcolm X, he brought that fire back in me. I would say like what Ron Paul did, but more. Because Ron Paul, don't get me wrong, I think Ron Paul, I think I got more from Ron Paul because I think Ron Paul has more of he can identify the problems and the solutions better than almost anybody. So I think I picked up more from Ron Paul. But Ron Paul don't have that fire in his belly. He don't like Malcolm X will have you ready to die. Like you listen to Malcolm X for like an hour and he have you like ready to go fight to the death. Like that's the type of like feeling he'll put in your belly. Like the way he talks, the way that he breaks things down, the way that he explains it, it's like no other. And what I realized was that Martin Luther King was not really like Ron Paul or like the founders, like what Ron Paul and the libertarians were talking about. Malcolm X was. Now, obviously, the founders were racist and they had slaves and all that stuff. So I don't mean in that way, but I mean in a freedom way. The same way the founders were not about peace and nonviolence to obtain freedom, that's what Malcolm X was about. Not Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was about peace and turning the other cheek, and being passive and, loving your enemy. Whereas Malcolm X was telling me, F that. You don't love your enemy. They're the problem. They don't deserve to have a peaceful approach. They're oppressing you, And he started calling out even Martin Luther King and the black leaders. And he started like exposing how they were just really watering down the movement, where Malcolm X was waking up the black masses and they were really they were really becoming revolutionaries, like militant mind. Getting their act together, not drinking and smoking, becoming militant and learning karate and all these things. Like he was like taking them on a whole nother level, right? Because Malcolm X was like, hey, if we want freedom, we get it the same way the white man got it. Same way Jefferson and George Washington got it, that's how we got it. And I always wondered, well, recently in the last few years, I always wondered why Ron Paul never brought up Malcolm X and he always brought up Martin Luther King, because when you listen to them, Malcolm X is much more along the lines of libertarianism than Martin ever was. So, and so Malcolm, that weekend or that few days, just like you two, when I was on there for a weekend, Malcolm did it again. And I just was glued to my TV screen. And I was just like, oh my goodness, yo, this dude is on fire. Like, I mean, I'll give you one example, man. He was in a church talking. And before he was giving his speech, 3 people had gotten killed, 2 black guys and a white guy. They were fighting for African Americans to have voting rights. So they were registering, if I'm not mistaken, everybody can go back and check the story. I posted on my Facebook page too. But they were helping blacks get voting rights, helping blacks register to vote and all that. And white racists, I think this was happening in the South, they obviously didn't like that, KKK and all that. Well, I don't know if it was a KKK or if it was just racist or whoever, but those 3 men got killed, right? And Malcolm X and everybody knew why they got killed. They got killed because they were helping blacks to get their voting rights. And in church, in the congregation, you're in church, God, the Lord's house, in front of a congregation. And Malcolm X said, we need to put a hit out on him. On the people that killed our 2 black brothers and the people that killed our white brother that was helping us. He was talking about putting a hit in church. I mean, this is like, I remember sitting there thinking to myself, like, wow, yo, this is a preacher telling black people, what's up? Are we ready? Are we gonna go? And I mean, to be talking like that when you knew what you was dealing with, when you knew you're dealing with the KKK, you're dealing with violent white racists that are connected to the government, protected to the government. You're dealing with the FBI, the CIA. I mean, he had the FBI come to his house and try to get him to sell out. The Muslims burned down his house with his family in it. I mean, and for him to still come out and speak like that. And I consider myself, a true libertarian that speaks out, and I love liberty and freedom. But I just don't think I could ever put myself in the same shoes as that brother. Like that dude just, even right now talking to you, dude, like I get overwhelmed with emotion just thinking about Malcolm X, because the dude is just, we lost a good one, yo.
Yeah.
And we lost a good one.
That's I hear you. And a lot of his activism was, the same story that still goes today, which was like police brutality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of your, you post a lot about that. And I think people now are starting to, have a different look at policing, especially since, people are starting to realize that we're interacting with police for real dumb reasons, like little things that don't even really matter.
Yep.
And but there's still a big, it probably divides in political lines. The division is, pro police means, law and order, and being like, and wanting a police accountability probably maybe goes on the other side, but they don't have to be divided. Can you kind of speak on like how the idea of either police accountability being there or I mean, why it has to be a divided issue? I mean, this should be something that a lot of people can come together on.
Well, I don't think it's divided among minorities that much. I think most minorities already know. I mean, this is nothing new to minorities. I mean, I didn't grow up in the ghetto or the hood or anything, but I grew up around a lot of blacks. All my friends, just about all of them, were black, and they all got stories. I mean, I got stories. We all got stories of things that we've been through where the cops showed us their true colors. So I don't think it's much divided among minorities, but I definitely think it's divided among Americans because, white Americans do not face the same wrath collectively that Black people and brown people face collectively. Don't get me wrong. Kelly Thomas, Daniel Schaefer, there's white people out there that got messed up by the police. So it definitely happens. And I speak out for them. But collectively, Black people and minorities are more targeted, and they feel the boot of government a lot more. And so I think it's harder for many white Americans or upper middle class Americans that have not experienced that for themselves. The way I put it is like, go to a breast cancer awareness walk, or colon cancer awareness walk, any cancer. Who are you going to find there? Most of the people are going to be people that had the cancer or their family had the cancer. So they have a personal connection. They understand. They feel the struggle. They've been in the struggle, or they know someone who has. Well, unfortunately, that's what it seems to take for a lot of human beings and a lot of Americans, is that if you ain't been through the struggle and you ain't seen it firsthand or felt it firsthand, you don't really understand, And I get that a lot in my comments. These people, and most of the time they happen to be white, and they tell me, the cops ain't that bad, or they're all not bad, or he should have did what he was told. And I try to tell them, like, listen, man, you need to understand that the reality that exists for you when you get pulled over is a whole nother different reality that exists for brown and Black people, especially Black people in this country. And I'm not saying that you need to feel guilty for being white, or you need to take blame or anything like that. All I'm saying is, as an American, you need to recognize that. You need to have you need to be an adult, have some common decency, and be honest about how America is. We live in a society where Black and brown people are preyed upon a hell of a lot more. That's just a fact. I mean, it's just, and I don't need to see no government statistic. I don't need to see no numbers. And people always want to throw this at me. And the numbers support what I'm saying anyways. But people like to bring up their numbers and statistics. I don't even care about that, because I don't believe anything government tells me anyways. I'm just going off the fact that my personal experiences, my Black friends have had, and they told me, experiences that Black people I met online that have told me, that have shared it with other people. These people ain't making this stuff up. This is not just, some conspiracy that everybody's going around saying the cops are racist, or the cops are, treating me badly. This really exists. It really happens. So because a lot of people do not have those same experiences, we cannot expect those people to understand, right? That's why you notice that a lot of these right wingers, because they're the ones that tend to defend the police, whenever police brutality comes up, what do? They deflect, right? They bring up Black crime. They bring up minimum wage. They bring up education, and they start bringing up all this shit that don't have nothing to do with police brutality, because they don't understand. Like, listen, dude, I get what you're saying. Okay, welfare, education, minimum wage. Okay, all those stuff are issues. I get that. All those things are real issues that we can talk about. But don't bring that up when we're talking about police brutality. That has nothing to do with this. There is a lack of justice. There is police officers that know they can get away with murder. They have an incentive. They go on vacation for it. They have an incentive to do it. So you got to look at your Black and brothers and understand that, oh, okay, I get why they're scared. I get why they don't like cops. I get why they're always yelling ACAP and F the police. We're not doing this because we just want to go around hating on police officers. We're doing this because we feel the wrath. When I drive outside, man, and you can see I'm not even Black, but I'm a minority. When I drive outside, whether it's the way I dress or look, whatever it is, I know that I get treated differently by the police, because I've already had it happen multiple times. So when I go out in public, I don't even surround myself with police. If I drive on the road and one of the cops pull up beside me, I get off the road. I do a U-turn. I don't care if it's out my way. I do not ride beside cops. I do not ride behind cops. And if they're behind me, I get out of the way. Now, some people might think that's crazy. That's overboard. That's exaggeration. Not to a Black or brown person, it's not. Because you could get pulled over by the wrong person at the wrong time. Maybe he had a bad day. Maybe him and his girlfriend just broke up. Maybe he caught his wife cheating or something. Maybe some other person he pulled over before pissed him off. I don't know. Maybe something happened, and now you about to feel the wrath for no reason. Yeah. Or maybe you say something smart and he just shoots you for that. Like, it's so.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I, after, I guess, after 9/11 and the whole war on terror, I was never scared of that some some terrorist was going to come. I never, I mean, it could have happened. It could happen, but the one thing that would always kind of like make my heart race was that if I'm driving and a cop pulls behind me, I was like, oh shit.
Exactly.
I was like, oh shit, here we go. And then, even if, I'm a pretty normal dude. I don't, get into shit.
Exactly.
But it didn't matter if that cop was behind you. Your heart's already like, oh, here we go. We're about to get it. And then you hope that, he goes around or something. But
visit palomaverdecbd.com for all of your CBD needs. Get 25% off everything in their store by using the promo code Renegade.
Yeah, I had a cop pull me over one time. I was on the highway in the Midwest, and I was riding the left lane. You're not supposed to ride the left lane. You're only supposed, in certain areas in the country, especially when you're out in the middle of nowhere, they leave the left lane as a passing lane. You only get in the left lane when you're passing. And so, I was being dumb and I paid attention to the road signs and I stayed in the left lane and I was just going straight. And sure enough, these cops were hanging out in the median. They got behind me eventually. Instead of this cop pulling me over right away, he got in the right lane beside me, because I didn't catch on, and you would have thought I would have pulled over to the right lane and caught onto it, but I didn't. I stayed in the left lane. They got behind me. Instead of just pulling his lights on and pulling me over because I was doing the wrong thing, he pulls beside me, right? And then once he's right beside me, he turns and we catch eye contact. And as soon as we catch eye contact, he slams on his brakes. So that way I end up in front of him. And then he pulls behind and puts his lights on, which basically means he only got beside me to see what I look like. Like, why? If I'm doing something wrong, why are you pulling beside me? I've never had no cop do that before, and I've been pulled over before. But I was just like, wow, this is just. And then he said something ridiculous. So he asked me something like, where are you headed? And I'm going to get my daughter. She's with her family right now. I haven't seen her in a while. And he said something like, why are you going to get your daughter? Why are you going to see your daughter? And I looked at him like an idiot, like. And I guess he wasn't. I guess he must have been a new cop, or he wasn't that good at interrogation or whatever, because he wanted to search my car, and I wouldn't let him. And when he said that, I was like, "Why am I going to see my daughter?" And I guess it made him feel stupid, and he was like, "All right, go ahead or whatever." It's like, and anyways, I won't say what I had on me or didn't have on me, but the point is, I wasn't hurting nobody, regardless what I had on me. So, yeah. You know what I mean? And so they don't have no right to be pulling anybody over or to be searching anybody's stuff or any of that stuff. But what I try to do is I try to put police brutality on the forefront, ICE brutality too. So that way it makes it harder for these right wingers to ignore it. It makes it harder for them to keep pushing. I mean, how many times you gonna say that this is, just an incident? It's just one bad cop or a bad apple. I mean, how many times are we gonna say this? Like how many videos you got to go through? How many times you got to catch the police line? And I hope you and me I hope you'll bring this up. I don't know what your questions are or what you have lined up, but I was really hoping we talk about the liberty movement and the right libertarians and the left libertarians. And really
let's get into that. Let's get into that right now. I had because it's lately or recently, and I noticed this. I would guess maybe in the last couple of months, for sure, it's been turned up. But yeah, I guess you've had some beef with some people in the liberty movement, and my take on it is if it's constructive, but you might have a different take, but also you're the one in it. So let's So freestyle a little bit, man. What do you got?
In my opinion, my criticism is constructive. In my opinion, a lot of people don't agree with me. I would say most people don't agree with me. But that's okay. I'm used to being on my own. So that's not a problem. But it's something I noticed. So when I was part of the Liberty movement back in 2008, 2012, the whole Ron Paul thing was going on. But around 2012 was when social media really started getting out there. Well, I'd say probably the later end of Obama's term, right? Yeah, 2012, because he was elected. Yeah, he got elected 2008, and then 2012 was his second term. So yeah, around 2012 time, Ron Paul running again, that was the time that Facebook and Twitter was really starting to get out there. So I would say that Obama's second term was when social media really started to play a role in politics. It started to play a role in what everyday activists were doing, catching up to what people were saying and arguing and debating. It was like a whole nother world now, right? People are online. Like, we didn't have that before. You had to go out and meet up groups and, to argue and debate and stuff. So around that time, social media started to grow. And so more and more of these police videos started to come out, right? And then also more people got to comment on different stories, right? It was more of a, I don't know.
More interactions. There's more interactions.
Yeah, it was more of an interaction community online going on that we'd never experienced before, right? So because of this phenomenon, or this internet that was taken off, social media taken off, it allowed me and probably others to see more of what everybody was really about, right? Because when Ron Paul was running, we all was about Ron Paul. So we were all promoting and saying the same shit he was saying. None of us were really going off on our own tangent and doing our own thing. It was all Ron Paul. So we were all cool. It's all buddy, lovey. Nobody's really arguing or debating or fighting like that. We were all getting along because Ron Paul got us all in the same, tent, so to speak. But when the Ron Paul shit ended and everybody started going back to, regular life, and it died down, the honeymoon was over. We realized we weren't getting the delegates. We realized we got cheated. It was over. Now I got to start to see people's true colors and what people really were. Because I remember back in 2012, I remember telling my girl and telling my friends, because a lot of my friends, personal friends, were not into politics at all. My homies, they were just like any other homies. We hollering at chicks, we smoking, we drinking. That's it. This ain't no politics and all that stuff. So a lot of my close friends weren't into any of that. But when I'm online and I'm on social media and all these different stories start coming out, Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, Mike Brown, all these different stories start coming out. Now I start to see people's real side. It wasn't this Ron Paul movement no more, where people was just promoting Ron Paul and just defending Ron Paul's talking points and principles. Nah, this was everybody out on their own now. And man, this was such a huge awakening for me, because I used to tell my girl and my friends that Ron Paul supporters were the best. Oh man, all these dudes, all these white boys, they the real deal. Man, they all for liberty and freedom, and they ain't racist or nothing. They like, if you don't find out Ron Paul, I remember I used to say this, if you find a Ron Paul supporter, you better keep them as a friend. That's probably the best friend you got. I was on a high when it came to Ron Paul supporters, because I met so many wonderful people. And I think conservatives love to meet brown and black people that are not lefties. So you kind of get like, how it is when you're around conservatives and you're not white, they like put you on a pedestal so a little bit, and you start to get all this praise and love, And so I'm pretty sure it was, and you know what I mean, right? I mean,
yeah, I know what you mean. I used to say, oh, I'm not a Republican insider, I'm a Republican West Sider, and they love that shit.
Yeah, there you go. So they just love the fact that there's somebody different talking their same shit, right? So anyways, they began to reveal themselves to me. A lot of these Christian conservatives that I was hanging out with, that I loved, I had utmost respect for, but I started seeing things that I ain't never heard them say or do. I mean, disgusting things about black people, about Hispanics and immigrants at the border. Let's get an electric fence. Let's put guns up there and shoot them while they're coming. Let's put alligators over there. I mean, the smoke stuff that I don't even know how they fathom this stuff. It's so disgusting. And so as years went on in these cases, Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, I started seeing all these libertarians who were, back in 2012, 1776, and government ain't gonna tell me what to do, and I own myself, and this and that, all this freedom talk, right? Now, all of a sudden, it was all that comply talk. Well, Paco, what did he have in his system? Or what was he doing? Or, why didn't he just listen and do what was told? And so all these liberty lovers started like revealing to me that they were different, that they weren't really about liberty. See, when we're talking about taxes and we're talking about government spending and we're talking about welfare, oh, they hardcore to the death for liberty. But as soon as you start bringing up immigrants and you start bringing up ICE and border patrol and police brutality and the wars, these people start to show their true colors. And that's what happened, is like, I started to realize like, whoa, I had to take a step back after like from 2012 to like 2016. From 2012 to 2016, I was like I was realizing like, oh my goodness, like these people were not who I thought they were. And as time went on, I was losing all of them. They were dissing me. They were hating on me. People were unfriending me. People were saying, fuck you, Paco, and this. I mean, calling me names and stuff. And I mean, dude, listen to me. These were people that were in the Ron Paul Tribune. Some of them were in the Ron Paul Tribune website. Like I would have thought we were like this, like mad close, like tight, you know? And I was like, wow, like I see it now. I see that these people were not what they claimed to be. They were just, what happened is they just saw Ron Paul as the anti-establishment guy. And it was cool to be on the Ron Paul train, but they were never really about liberty. And Black oppression coming to the surface on social media, all these videos of police brutality, it caused them to show their true colors. And then it allowed me to see who they really were. And so we get to 2016, now Trump's in the picture, and boy, they just went overboard. Boy, they just took their, right-wingism, racism to the whole nother level. And that was it. I mean, from the time Trump announced his presidency, that he was running, to the time he got out of office, I've been yelling and screaming and exposing and calling everybody out. But here's the thing, is that what I noticed is that when Obama was president, everybody was cool attacking Obama every day. I mean, dude, it could be a thunderstorm outside and they were blaming Obama for that shit. I mean, Obama was to blame for everything, right? And I was right there in the midst of all these white conservatives yelling at Obama, right with them. I was dissing Obama. I mean, I remember saying stuff at my job back in Virginia that made some Black people feel uncomfortable. Of course, they knew me. They knew the type of person I was. So I guess they let me get away with all the shit I was saying about Obama. But I was back in 07 and 08, I was talking shit about Obama like it was 2016. Like I was hating on him early, bright and early. So I realized that the way that they were treating Obama was not the same way they were treating Trump. You see, it was cool to attack Obama every day. People were loving me for attacking Obama every day. But as soon as I started attacking Trump every day, now everybody's like, oh, Paco, hold on, calm down. Like, be easy, be nice. What's going on? Now I'm looking at them like, hold up. What do you mean, be nice? Ain't nothing changed. What is Trump? Well, what's different about him? What this is just Obama with the red banner. Like this is no different than anybody else. I'm not about to take the gloves off with him when I didn't take the gloves off with Obama. So if I was slamming Obama every day and I was trashing Obama every day, I remember going to Ron Paul rallies and calling out the people who were selling Obama t-shirts with Malcolm X and Martin Luther King on it. I was telling them, what are you doing? Why are you selling this? I mean, so if I'm willing to do all that for Obama, why in the world wouldn't I do that for Trump? And keep in mind that when Trump became president, it wasn't like Obama. People didn't really know Obama. People didn't really have much to go back and check on him and see how he was and see what he was about. So it was a little bit more understandable how people got tricked by Obama. Now, I didn't get tricked by him because I saw through his bullshit, and all the minorities should have saw through it right away, but they didn't. But I sympathize a little bit with him because I understand it was harder. He didn't have a big background to look at, to look into. But Trump, oh my goodness, this dude, he has decades to see the type of person that he is. And what did he do all those decades? Fund Democrats, defend Planned Parenthood, defend gun confiscation, all of these things. He would talk about Bill Clinton was the best president, the economy's better under Democrats than Republicans. Everything about him was Democrat. So to see this guy come to the Republican Party, talk all this mess, how he's going to come change it, and then see all my fellow Ron Paul supporters fall for that shit, I was like, wow. It was like a smack to the face. So I went from waking up to see how they really were from all the police brutality that was coming to the surface and them showing their true colors, to then just watching them just not hold it back anymore. And the full-blown, whoever they were, came out. Trump brought it out of them. And so the liberty movement, has pretty much been dead. But to get to the beef, right, to get to the part, because I really want to talk about this, and I was really kind of glad that you asked me to be on the show today after what happened this morning, because, I don't think most people want to get me on their show. And I don't think most people want to talk to me, because I'm not coming at them from the left, which is what they're used to. I'm coming at them from the right. And these libertarians and ANCAPs, they don't know how to handle somebody from the right. They only know how to handle people from the left. So what I'm upset about and what I've concluded maybe about 6 months ago to a year ago sometime, I came to the conclusion that the problem with libertarianism, and I really hope whoever's listening out right now is really listening and pay attention to what I'm about to say, because I think this is probably one of the most important things I'll probably say. What I concluded 6 months or so back or so is that the problem with libertarianism is the prominent libertarians. It is the ones who have the influence. The problem isn't the message of libertarianism, because the message is attractive as hell. Do whatever you want, be with whoever you want. You own your body, you own your money, you own your property, go wherever you want, no permission, just don't hurt nobody, don't take nobody's stuff. I mean, come on, to the average person, who's gonna say, yeah, I don't like that? Okay, so there's nothing wrong with the libertarian message. But what I realized, and I didn't realize this for 10 years, I didn't realize this for a decade, was that the problem is the prominent libertarians, the ones that got the books, the ones that write all the articles, the ones that get on the TV shows. So we're talking about Tom Woods, we're talking about Dice, we're talking about Ron Paul, Rand Paul, Thomas Massey, Hornberger. We're talking about Eric July. We're all of these people. What I realized was that the way they acted towards Obama was not the way they acted towards Trump. They were very light on Trump, very few attacks on Trump. Some of them didn't attack him at all. They actually defended him. They actually supported him. And many libertarians, ex-Ron Paul supporters, actually voted for him. So this was a problem to me, a huge problem, because I knew the whole way through that Trump was never the real deal. I don't know how long, I don't know why people couldn't see this, but it was so obvious from the get-go that it was nothing about liberty with him. So since I've come to the conclusion that a light bulb went up in my head and made me realize that the problem was the prominent libertarians, well, then that made me realize that I had to stop supporting these guys. And I had to stop biting my tongue. Because for a long time, I sat back and watched Ron Paul and Tom Woods and all of them dudes be quiet about police brutality, be quiet about the migrant lockdowns, right? But what happened as soon as the COVID lockdowns happened? They all turned into Malcolm X all of a sudden. Tom Woods yelling at the top of his lungs, giving speeches, passionate, because the COVID lockdowns affect him. Same thing with Dave Smith. He passionate, talking about this is the hill that libertarians got to die on. This is the hill we die on. Well, where were you at when the migrants were being locked down? The immigrants been going through this for years, and you ain't been saying shit. But now that you and Tom Woods and all you Americans got to deal with a lockdown, now y'all want everybody to come together. Now y'all want everybody to die on this hill that affects you. That's a problem, right? Because I'm not caged up at the border. I'm a citizen, so I'm not worried about that. But it don't matter. I still speak out about it. I'm not being bombed in the Middle East, but it don't matter. I still talk about it. I'm not being shot by the police either all these times, but I still talk about it, because it's about defending individual liberty. And so these people are ignoring the violations of individual liberty. Tom Woods, Jeff Dice, Eric July, many of them, all of them. And I hate to bring Ron Paul in this, because we just got done talking about how Ron Paul really changed both of us. And I will always have a large amount of respect for Ron Paul. But because I'm an honest, truthful person, I have to be honest with myself. And I have to be honest about Ron Paul. He has dropped the ball. The Trump era and the COVID era has exposed him, which is sad. But Ron Paul has his show, and he rarely talks about any police brutality. He don't bring the families on to talk. He don't break down the police narrative. You know how many times the police have been caught lying? How many police shootings and police killings we've had, and the original police report did not match what actually came out in the end? Where is Ron Paul and Tom Woods on that? Nowhere. You know how many people or how many settlements taxpayers have paid out because police officers have shot, killed, or hurt someone, and then the taxpayers have to pay the settlement? That's socialism. Where is Ron Paul and Tom Woods on that? They don't expose that at all. They're nowhere. These right-wingers don't talk about none of that. You know how many police officers have raped Americans in the last year or two? I'm talking about women being pulled over forced to give a blowjob so they don't give a ticket. These are the type of stories I come across. Sick, disgusting stories. Where are the libertarians at? The Innocent Project. There's a page called the Innocent Project, and they help get people out of jail who were convicted of a crime that they didn't commit. Now, I follow this page because they're one of my favorite pages. I love and adore them. And when I have the extra money, I'm going to pay them every month to support them. But almost every week, it seems like, or every month, there's a new person, especially Black, being released from jail for a crime they didn't commit. I mean, I'm seeing this over and over and over again. 15 years for this Black guy, 20 years, 10 years, 30 years, 40 years. And I'm looking, where are the libertarians? Where's Ron Paul? Where's Tom Woods? I mean, these are the most outrageous, horrific violations of liberty. And the libertarians are nowhere. Silent. But let the media say something about race or about a conservative or something stupid, dumb, cancel culture, whatever. And all these right libertarians step up and they all got something to say now. They all got an opinion. And if you notice, that's what happens with alternative media. The right alternative media all cover the same subjects and the same point of view. And the left alternative media all cover the same subjects and the same point of view. This is why I think a lot of them are being run by the deep state, by the CIA. I think alternative media has been compromised, because I think that when you sit down and think about it, all the real stories are being pushed under the rug, swept under the rug. And I know because I'm the one sharing them. Like if you go to Occupy the Media, anybody watching this, you go to Occupy the Media, you're going to see stories you don't see anywhere else. Because people are not covering this, especially if you follow a bunch of libertarians, because for some reason, these libertarians ain't covering it. And I have some people getting on my page, getting upset with me because I'm attacking Tom Woods, or I'm attacking, the Mises Caucus. But I'm like, why are y'all mad at me? You should be getting mad at them. Look at what I'm showing you. Look at what I'm saying. Like these people are the issue. For example, Tom Woods used to always say, no matter who you vote for, you always get John McCain. And I agree. But then the last time they had a meeting at the Mises Caucus, I watched this, they had a conference or whatever, and him and Dice were up there talking about Biden like he was gonna, he was the worst thing ever. And they were making it seem like the left was so much worse than the right. And their previous feelings of, it didn't matter left or right, it was all the same. They kind of like left that to the side, and now they felt like the left was more of a threat. That's pretty much what they were telling their audience, is that the left is more of a threat, it's more of an enemy. And Dice was like, he said something like, I had to kind of like rethink what I used to think. And so this tells me that they're either lying or they themselves have fell for the divide and conquer. If you're actually a libertarian trying to convince me that the left is worse than the right and that they're the enemy, that tells me that you've been tricked, fooled, because neither one is worse. They both suck. They both for statism. They both for big government. We just had Donald Trump, a Republican, outspend every Democrat in history. He just grew government bigger than anybody. He just opened up a new military branch, Space Force. And here these guys are trying to tell me the leftists are the enemy. Look at what your boy's doing, and you guys are being quiet. Why are you being quiet? Because you're so occupied attacking the left, attacking the media. You forgot to attack the right. And I don't like that. To me, that's hypocritical. Now, these same right-wingers got a lot of shit to say about Biden, right? They got it every day. They got a tweet about Biden. When they ain't have a tweet every day. They didn't have shit to say about Trump like that, right? So you begin to see what the liberty movement is about. And it took me 10 years to figure this out, or to realize this, or to formulate this opinion, because I have adored these guys for 10 years. I have defended them. I have spoke up about them. I've promoted them. I've given them my money. I've just adored them. And maybe that was part of the problem, was that I was just, admired them so much that I wasn't trying to critique them. I wasn't trying to look for their flaws. Or if I saw their flaws and noticed them, I would just brush it off. Like there was a couple of times I was watching the Ron Paul Liberty Report, and Ron Paul would say a couple of things that was not libertarian, but it would be like, half a sentence. It'd be real quick, short, and then it'd be over with. He'll jump into something else. And I'd just be like, maybe he didn't mean it like that. Or, I would just brush it off. And after a while, I started realizing, okay, I can't do this no more. Like these dudes are pissing me off now. Like, when George Floyd died and it was on video, it took about 3 days for the riots to start. I noticed this because I was calling out all the conservatives. What happened was George Floyd died. All these conservatives didn't say shit, or if they did say anything, they were defending the cop like they usually do, coming up with excuses. But then 3 days later, when the riots started, everybody who didn't have an opinion all of a sudden had an opinion. You see, you got to pick up on these things. When you're out on Twitter and you're out listening to Liberty Movement and these Liberty, these celebrities and stuff like that, you got to pick up on what's going on and read between the lines. Okay, so these people are not focusing on calling out both sides. Okay, they are focusing on calling out the left, just like the left wingers are focused on calling out the right. Okay, and so I basically picked up on it. I basically picked up on their ways. Their ways is to, softly attack the right, but go major hard against the left, because in their mind, the left is the big enemy. And to me, when you say that, you're falling for the divide and conquer. Okay. I think I lost track of what I was going to say, but the point is that, go ahead.
Well. Also, so this is another line of thought that I've had, because yes, let's see. I think Trump will put more. Will put almost the same amount of national debt that Obama did in 8 years. He's going to do it in 4. And to me, I always thought, like, I would always tell everybody, like, hey, the way you drain the swamp is by cutting the budget, because that right there is you'll see everybody come out, all the swamp creatures, coming out to try to get their money or do whatever. But if you don't cut the government, they don't have to change their ways or anything like that. But isn't it also some, so yes, when I would bring, so I'm on your side on this, in the fact that I talk shit to consistently the same way Obama during Trump, because I didn't change. It's it's right in front of you of what they're doing. But how did the game and the way we play it in the Liberty Movement change? Because the collapse never came. And when I mean collapse, I mean we've been basically saying, oh, the collapse is coming, the money's going to stop, and if it never comes, because basically a lot of people said, oh, well, the budgets don't matter anymore. They were saying it, like, that was basically like their talking point was like, well, we don't care about budgets anymore because we could just print them. So yeah, that is true. But I don't know, I'm just asking, does it change the calculus when we can just print money? Like now they're, sending out checks directly to people. And I mean,
when you hear,
I'm trying to ask a little bit, right?
Yeah, I got you. When you hear conservatives say that the budget don't matter, they're going to spend money anyways, that tells you Trump won. Trump successfully turned these conservatives into socialists. They now defend stimulus checks. They now, everything, all the spending Trump was doing, they just made excuses, brush it off. And so I have not heard anybody say what I'm about to tell you. Anybody. I may be the only one that hold this opinion. But what people need to realize is that Trump movement, the Trump era, it did not happen genuinely. The Ron Paul movement was genuine. It happened from the ground up. There's no way Ron Paul was getting all that support because he was barely getting attention in the media. So it wasn't going to happen, the way that it should have happened, where he just goes on TV and he gets a fan base or whatever. But no, the grassroots had to work hard. We had to get blimps, we had to go protest. We had to surround buildings. We had to do so much stuff to get his name out there. But with Trump, that wasn't the case. This is what happened. Again, anybody listening, I hope they really hear me out on what I'm about to tell them. Donald Trump's movement was manufactured. Everybody thinks the media hates Donald Trump, but I'm going to tell you the opposite. The media loves Donald Trump. And the media and Donald Trump have been on the same team since day one. Now, what I'm about to tell you, I've been saying since day one. The only thing that I was wrong about was that I thought Donald Trump was a part-time distraction. I didn't realize he was going to be a full-time distraction. And what I mean by that is I thought Hillary was going to be the president. I didn't think they were going to give it to Trump. I thought he was just going to be there to hold off the Republicans until, they gave it to Hillary. But I said back then that they are using Trump to drown out Rand Paul, for one. That's one of the reasons, because Rand Paul was the real one at the time, and he was telling the truth. And they didn't want him to get exposure and to get, do like his father and get a big movement. So they had Trump there to help stop that. But when you go back to that time, try to think what happened. When Donald Trump came down that escalator, he was a joke. Everybody took him as a joke, even Republicans. Hardly anybody took him seriously. So they had to make people take him seriously. And that's what they did. I'm going to tell you how they did it. So as Donald Trump gets picked or runs for office, they start putting out all these polls. And you notice they start putting polls out every day, every week. And all these polls, all of a sudden, had Donald Trump at the top every time. And then every time they did a debate, who was at the middle of the stage? Who got the most questions? Donald Trump. Every time there was a news report in the news cycle about politicians, about the candidacy, about the race, who was it about? Donald Trump or one of the other candidates responding to Donald Trump. So I try to tell everybody, listen to me. They are fooling you. This dude, they are basically just using him as a distraction. Because I'll be honest, I didn't even think he was going to get the nominee. Because remember, at this time, I had waken up to a lot of the right wingers. I had waken up to their racism and their closet racism and how they didn't care about police brutality or ICE. But at this time, I wasn't thinking that they were so lost and so gone and so gullible sheep that they would actually fall for Trump. So in my mind, I was like, the government's tripping right now. They think they can actually get away with Trump. They think people are going to fall for him. So I was the one being naive and giving people too much credit. I remember telling my girl, there's no way this dude is going to get the nominee. First of all, it's rigged. And there's no way they're going to give it to him because they need people to go along with it. And who's going to go along with Trump? But I was wrong. And the media and the government knew what they were doing. What they were doing was they were creating the Trump movement. How do you create a Trump movement? How do you get people wowed up for a New York liberal, conservatives especially? How do you do this? Well, you got to tap into what they don't like. And they knew that at this point in time, 2016, at this time, conservatives have been fed up with the media. Ron Paul helped a lot with that. So come 2016, the anti-media, aroma is out there. Everybody hates the media. No one likes the media. So they figured somewhere in some boardroom, somewhere in the back room, somewhere, they figured, hey, if we keep attacking Trump and we keep making it seem like he's irritating us and he's the problem and he's a threat to what we want, the conservatives are going to see that as him being a real deal outsider. They want an outsider, let's give them an outsider. And that's what they did. They created an outsider image out of a billionaire New York liberal that don't give two shits about none of these people. And nobody picked up on this. Till this day, I have maybe seen one or two people that said, all right, Paco, I hear you. But for the most part, I have heard nobody say this. Nobody mention, bring this up. Nobody. And I'm sitting here like, how can you not see this? It's clear as day. They attacked him 24/7 and all the attacks were meaningless attacks, right? He said racist things here and there, or, he did this, he was mean to women, this. It was never about real policies. They didn't get on him about going to Saudi Arabia, arming Saudi Arabians. They didn't get on him about his foreign policy. There were so many things, sanctions, regime change, so many things they could have got on Trump in a legitimate, for legitimate criticism, and they didn't. And that told me that this whole thing was created. So by the time we get to the nomination, all these people that didn't like Trump, you go back and ask them. Almost every Trump supporter will tell you that Trump was not their first choice because he was a joke at the beginning. Nobody took him serious. Remember, he's a New York liberal and a friend of the Clintons, right? So he was a joke at the beginning. So they had to flip that. They had to change that. And because they knew that Republicans and conservatives were so anti-media, they knew that there would be sort of like a blowback or a backlash by them attacking Trump so much that it would turn him popular. It would make him popular with the conservatives. And that's exactly what happened. If you remember looking at back then, you'll remember seeing people say, oh, I know Trump isn't that great, but I love that he pissed off liberals. I must have saw that comment 1,000 times. And that proved to me that that's exactly what they did, is that they fooled y'all into believing that this dude was the outsider by attacking him so much that you got fooled by the game. And all they did was set up this game where Trump and the media were in on it together the whole time. And all they did was argue back and forth. Why did they argue back and forth for 4 years about Russiagate and about everything dumb under the sun? Was because they needed to distract us for 4 more years so we wouldn't focus on what the government is doing. So instead of the Ron Paul libertarians and conservatives that are upset with the system, upset with the media, instead of us focusing on the real deal principles like we were supposed to, now everything became about anti-media, anti-liberals. And no matter how many problems Donald Trump had, they were willing to overlook that simply because the media was a bigger enemy. The media and the liberals were a bigger problem. And here this guy is, he's scaring the daylights out of them. So he must be doing something right. He must be the real deal. And I was telling him the whole time, no, he is playing you. He is part of the media. He was working for NBC before he ran for office. So he's one of them.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
You know what I mean? They're on the same team. We're the ones that got played. Not the media getting played, we got played. Oh, one other thing I want to mention too is that another thing that made me realize this too is that they were propping up Trump and that they were turning him into the nominee all along, was that back when Rand Paul was still in the race, Rand Paul had got he decided to go to I think it was Haiti or somewhere in Latin America. It might have been Guatemala. I can't remember where he went, but he went somewhere.
Do eye surgeries?
Eye surgery, exactly. To do eye surgery, right? And when he went, they sent one reporter with him. One. That same day that they interviewed him or that he was doing his surgeries, Donald Trump gave his, I think it was his first rally. And every media station showed up for Trump's rally and they gave Rand Paul one reporter. Now here Donald Trump is doing nothing. He's just got us rally. He's just, like any other candidate that's running. Meanwhile, we have a Republican healing the blind. I mean, you would think that this would be something the Republicans would want to brag about to their voters, right? Like, look, we got a guy that's actually healing poor brown people. He's actually curing people that can't afford to get eye surgery. He's going down there doing it for free. What a man this is. Like, I remember making memes about Rand Paul, about how great that was that he did that. But I caught on and I realized that they gave him one reporter and they gave Donald Trump the whole limelight. So you got to ask yourself, as a Ron Paul supporter, if Ron Paul was a threat and they gave him the blackout treatment, and Donald Trump is supposedly a threat, but he's getting the 24/7 news cycle treatment, something don't add up. What's going on? Something isn't adding up, and we got to see through that. And that's what I did. And unfortunately, it fell on a lot of deaf ears, and
Well, I've been listening for sure, and I'm going to continue to follow a lot of your posts out there. I've always admired your consistency because I try to be consistent. So
yeah.
So I'm gonna admire that. So, in closing, give a good forecast for the Liberty movement. What do you see in the future? Is it how do you see it playing out? The Libertarians party. Or taking over Republican Party again, or is it mostly just educational? Like, well, what do you see? What are you optimistic about in the Liberty movement moving forward?
Oh yeah, that's actually brings up the Libertarian Party, which I also want to talk about. Well, in my view, the Libertarian movement, the Liberty movement, is dead. It's dead. It is what it is. It's just dead. I mean, there's too many people compromising, and even the prominent libertarians have started compromising, and they've fallen for the divide and conquer themselves. Or, and I meant to say this earlier, what I've realized over the years is that I believe a lot of these prominent libertarians are not in it for the right reasons. I didn't pick up on this for 10 years, but I think I'm picking up on it now. And I really think that it's just a business for a lot of them. So what I would say to the libertarians out there listening is that when it comes to the prominent libertarians, the Ron Paul types, Rand Paul, Thomas Massey, Tom Woods, Dave Smith, these people need to have their feet held to the fire. If they're going to be out there promoting libertarianism and they're going to be carrying the message on their back, so to speak, then they need to be doing it properly. Because if they don't, and they're not, they are hurting the movement. They are not helping the movement, right? So for example, today, the Mises Caucus, I called them out today because they were all bragging how they won in Nevada. So everybody on Twitter was talking about the Mises Caucus. So I decided to put up a video that I posted up a few months ago where Walter Block is defending voluntary slavery, okay? Now, just imagine if a newbie, a liberal or a conservative, whoever, that doesn't know much about libertarianism, comes across Walter Block, comes across this video of him talking about libertarianism is defending voluntary slavery. You can give up your liberties, sell your liberties to me, and I could be your slave master, and I can whip you, and you can't do nothing about it. I can even kill you, and you can't do nothing about it. This is what Walter Block in the Mises Caucus was talking about on video, and then the Mises Caucus shared it. Now, today, a lot of them try to tell me that they didn't agree with what he was saying. Most of them don't agree with him, but they shared it to the Facebook page, and none of them called him out on it, not even the interviewer, and nobody's been calling him out on it since. And this is what I'm talking about. Imagine if you're a new person that doesn't understand libertarianism, and that's the first thing you hear about libertarianism. What are you going to get from that? Okay, Tom Woods. Let's say you're a new libertarian and you go to Tom Woods' Twitter, right? And you see him talking about COVID every day in the left, in the media every day. I mean, this dude is tweeting. And it's not just him. All right, to be fair, it's not just him. It's a bunch of them. These right libertarians. It's like every day all they talking about is the media, the left, and COVID, right? I even had someone today say, "Stop being so divisive, Paco." But you guys just want. I meant to tell him, you guys just want to focus on COVID and the left all day. That's it. Where is the police brutality? So if somebody goes to your page, a newbie, and there's somebody who cares about police brutality, they care about the drug war, they care about their minorities having their rights violated, and all they see these libertarians talking about is just COVID and the left and the media, what are they going to think? And then some of these right libertarians even defend the police and make excuses for the police. So what is a newbie going to pick up from that? So this made me realize that the liberty movement's main problem, was staring us in the face all along, and we never knew it. And it's the people at the top. It's the people getting the interviews, the people getting the writing the books, writing the articles, the people that every time they say something or do something, it goes viral, it gets shared 1,000 times. These people are the problem. So when people ask me, Paco, why are you start coming out calling everybody out? Why are you starting to slam everybody, get mad at everybody? And I'm letting them know it's because I finally concluded what the problem is. See, for 10 years, I was saying the problem was the media. And don't get me wrong, the problem still is the media, because they promote socialism to right and left, and that makes it harder for libertarianism to get out there. So the media is definitely a problem. But during those 10 years, where I failed at was I failed to pick up on who these people really were. It's been years that they've been ignoring police brutality and ignoring the migrant lockdowns, Ron Paul as well. But I just kind of brushed it off. I just kind of made excuses in my head, bit my tongue, and sometimes I would ask them, and Ron Paul, Daniel McAdams, I would go because I talked to these people before, and I would say, yo, why don't you guys talk about police brutality? Well, why don't you guys interviewing some of the families? Like, what's going on? Like, think about it. And the libertarians are about individual liberty and property rights. Nobody in the country violates individual liberties and property rights more than cops. So how in the world is it that so many libertarians ignore the police state? And when I say police state, I mean specific stories, because these people like to come to me and always be like, no, look at what I said about the police state here, and look at this article I wrote a year ago, 2 years ago, this tweet I did 5 years ago. No, I'm not asking you for the time that you paid lip service to the police state and you mentioned the police state in your tweet. Where are the stories? Where are the cases? Where is the spotlight on the police officers that lied, or the police officers that turned off their camera? Where are all the videos? Because you guys share a lot of videos from the liberal media when you're exposing them. Where are all the videos from the police brutality? Where are all the videos of the migrant kids dying and ICE brutality? You don't share none of those videos. I remember Tom Woods shared a video one time on Twitter. I came across it, and it was a video of some protester throwing like a tire or a cap, a hubcap or whatever at a cop, and it knocked the cop out or it knocked the cop down. And he just shared it. I don't think he said anything, but I remember thinking to myself, boy, it's funny Tom Woods would share this video of a cop being hurt. I have yet to see him share a video of a citizen being hurt. Isn't that amazing? A libertarian gets their feelings hurt and gets triggered by officers getting hurt, agents of the state, agents that initiate force on everyone, violate the non-aggression principle, but that don't trigger them. What triggers them is somebody hurting a cop. Another time, I sat down and watched Tom Woods and Eric July, and Eric July is another phony out there. He put me on his show about 3 weeks ago and made a mistake. He didn't realize who he was putting on there, a real libertarian. And I exposed him, and now he don't want to get me back on. He has no problem getting liberals on. He has no problem, arguing with low-hanging fruit, dumb liberals that give him, no real challenge. But he don't want to talk to me though. So that you begin to find out that these people are not really for liberty. So I watched this video with Tom Woods and Eric July, and they came together about George Floyd, right? And this is what a lot of them do. Eric July, Tom Woods, and then I saw a video with Eric July and Matt Kibbe. And they both did their separate video about George Floyd. In the beginning of the Tom Woods video, Eric July is breaking down what happened to George Floyd, right? He's breaking down the case and how they put his knee on the neck or whatever. Maybe about 4 or 5 minutes. Almost the whole video after that, almost the rest of the video, him and Tom Woods started talking about the left, the property damage from the riots. Never mind that the cops violate more rights and violate more private property than any protester, any BLM group. But Tom Woods won't concern with that. And you notice how a lot of these right libertarians, when they do talk about police brutality, or they do talk about police misconduct, it's usually what? A case that has blown up, that has made it to the media, that everybody's talking about, and now they want to jump on the bandwagon. I meant to say earlier, because I'm freestyling, I'm going off the top of my head, I'm trying to get my thoughts together. But I remember Ron Paul did something that really ticked me off. Just like the right wingers, he waited 3 days after the George Floyd died to talk about the George Floyd case, meaning he did the same thing the right wingers did. He did not say anything about the case really until the riots started. So you notice that the right wingers, the real racist right wingers will come out early and defend cops early because they're just racist and they defend cops no matter what. But most of them keep quiet and they don't say nothing till the property damage starts. And that's Ron Paul, Tom Woods, and them. They don't got nothing to say about the Derek Chauvin trial and all the police narrative being lies and police misconduct, police settlements. They don't got nothing to say about that. But when the riots start, they got a lot to say. That's another thing I picked up on. You don't got nothing to say about the state committing violence, but you got a lot to say about the property damage. And then another thing I noticed about Tom Woods and Ron Paul that they never say that you would think they would say to inform and educate their people, their listeners, is that everything going on is blowback. Who loves to talk about blowback more than Ron Paul and Tom Woods? And they have yet to tell their audience that all of this property damage, all of these rioting that's going on is blowback. The same way you drop bombs in the Middle East and you create new terrorists, that's blowback. The same way you go and you have regime change and sanctions and overthrow dictators or elected leaders down in Latin America, and then you have all of this destabilization and people dying and killing each other and drug wars and all that because of U.S. intervention. What do? You get blowback and you get all the migrants coming to the border. This is the same thing, except it's going on domestically. The cops are killing us, cops are violating our rights, and people are fed up. And you get the civil unrest, you get the riots. And so they don't say that. And then another thing they don't say is that the cops are standing down. So you listen to Ron Paul, Rand Paul, Tom Woods, you see them criticizing the rioters, but they ain't criticizing the cops who are standing down and allowing the rioters to create the chaos. I don't know what Americans that are sitting home watching this, you cannot just go and loot a store. Okay, get 10 of your friends and go loot CVS and see what happens. You can't just go and loot anything unless you're allowed to. Now, the question is, why would the cops allow people to loot and burn buildings and destroy private property and ruin, ruin innocent lives. Why would they do that? It's simple. All right, you got to read between the lines. The cops have all the spotlight on them. Now, the public is outraged. The public is pissed off because the cops did something wrong. They killed somebody. They did something wrong. How do you get all that anger off of you and put on to somebody else? Easy. You set up, you stand down, you let the riots occur, you get the media, right? And what does the media do? They get all the film, they get all the black people burning up the stores, go breaking into Target, grabbing food, chips, condoms, whatever, and then they play that on TV all night long, on repeat. And what does that do to the psyche of Americans? Now, all the Americans who were outraged about police and thinking about police brutality, it has now been, they have now swayed their anger now onto the protesters. And now all the conversation, all the media, all the right-wingers, all the right libertarians, everything is about the property damage, about the riots. Now we all forgot about what caused it, the root cause of the problem, the police brutality, okay? And then you see all these people talk about the COVID lockdowns and they don't say nothing about the state separating mothers and children. I mean, this is what we did to slaves, okay? I just got done reading a book about George Washington and his slaves. This is what we did to slaves. We separated their families. And here we have libertarians, quiet as hell, about the state separating children. And these children have been reportedly abused, sexually abused. And we all know we got pedophiles in the government. The same right-wingers talking about Pizzagate be the same right-wingers talking about the government need to stop human trafficking. They don't make no sense. They don't make no sense. Okay, so to answer your last question, to wrap it up, my advice to everyone that's in the liberty movement are, and I'm talking to the ones that are really libertarians. I mean, if you're not a libertarian and everything I said today applies to you, then you already know what you need to do. You need to switch up and change and start being consistent and start being principled, or stop calling yourself a libertarian. At least do us a favor. That's all I want Tom Woods and Eric July and Dave Smith and them, when I attacked them, that's all I want them to just stop calling yourself something you're not. Stop being something you're not. If you're not going to put a spotlight on the violation of individual liberty because these people don't look like you or because it doesn't affect you directly, you're not a libertarian. You're a right-winger. Just embrace it, claim it, and then continue to get your money from your little right-wingers, because that's really what they're about, is clicks and dollars, all right? But for the rest of us that want to see freedom, I have not made $1 off of this liberty movement. I've been doing this for 10 years strictly because I'm trying to wake people up. We need to start calling out the people we admire. It's time to stop. I swear to God, man, all these libertarians in the liberty movement, many of them will never lay a hand on Rand Paul, never say a bad thing about Thomas Massey, never criticize Ron Paul, never criticize Tom Woods. I mean, these guys are like off limits. You know what I'm saying? That's got to stop. That's got to stop. And this whole attacking the liberals all day, every day, but barely attacking the right, soft as mess on the right, making excuses for the right, that's got to stop. So that's my message is, let's go back to 2008.
All right.
You
All right. Paco, thank you for spending some time here on Los Libertinos podcast. You definitely brought chingazos and fire, which is what I'm trying to bring to all the listeners. Can you please plug in your social media stuff and anything that you might have going on, and then we'll call it a night.
Yeah. So the best place is Occupy the Media on Facebook. That's where my biggest following is. That's probably where I spend most of my time. So Occupy the Media on Facebook. And then on Twitter, I was banned over a year. I just got back on last month. You can find me under Libertarianism for Life. Or you can go to one of the prominent libertarians and find me, talking shit about them. You'll find me up there. I'm up there. So
all right. All right. Thank you, Paco. We'll do this again, hopefully, and we'll try to have like these conversations. If you want to be back on, we'll try to do it. And this is the first time I've ever talked to you, and your intentions are sincere, and so are mine with what I'm trying to do here. Yeah. So I think that's the most important thing, and just remember that not everybody's perfect, and we're not perfect, but you just gotta always try. We're always trying the best we can. Yep. All right, man. Peace.
Peace.
All right.